Cloud computing. What does it mean? Is it a fancy way to describe software as a rentable, leasable service? Well, let's find out.
The whole idea of cloud computing.
We believe this is the future of software, and it's really all about the impact you have on your industry.
Nobody had really built sort of a full-fledged accounting business system to be delivered over the web.
The first thing, the big idea behind NetSuite was to build a system to run a business. And that is still the big idea behind NetSuite.
One World made it possible to use NetSuite in a global environment. Retail customers that use financials and e-commerce and inventory and planning and budgeting are getting not just the value of each of those modules, but the combined value of those capabilities when they're actually linked together. And doing that's going to dramatically improve your visibility. You're going to be able to see all parts of your business. You'll get unprecedented control. You can train, test, and apply models. You can identify patterns behind the data.
As the closing bell rang for the final time this week, the stock market ended with a bit of a rally.
It was fundamental to choose an ERP technology platform that would enable us to speak the same language back of house across our business globally, and NetSuite does it.
There's even SuiteCommerce My Account, a self-service portal that customers can pay their invoices, see their invoices, check their order status, reorder, and more. Again, full cycle automation of AR.
Every customer runs their business differently. Every customer needs to modify NetSuite to manage those processes. Suite Cloud is what's enabled that.
We're scaling because you're scaling.
NetSuite has helped us do so much more.
You can't run a business without NetSuite.
A lot has happened since 1998. Booms, bubbles, and busts, the mobile internet, social media, and the explosion of e-commerce. One thing that's not changed is the NetSuite vision. From day one, we built NetSuite to be one system, the suite, giving leaders a complete view of their company. And the suite has never been a more powerful idea than it is now.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining this extra special 25-year anniversary celebration segment today with our founder and executive vice president, Evan Goldberg. Evan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Evan and I are going to dive into the history of NetSuite and its evolution over the past 25 years, why our suite is more powerful today than ever before, and what the next 25 years of NetSuite will look like. But before we get into all of that, a few housekeeping notes. Be sure you use the comments on whatever platform you're tuning in from to ask Evan any questions you may have. And if you don't have any questions, that's okay too. Just give us a shout out in the comments. We know you are tuning in from all over the place, so tell us where you're tuning in from. And we also want to hear your experience with NetSuite over the past 25 years, whether you're a new customer, an employee who's been with us from the start, or even just someone with a vested interest in what we've got going on. We want to hear from all of you. And I know you want to hear from Evan, so let's get going, Evan. Now, you've told the story a lot, but we may have some new people here, as I've said. So can you take us back and tell us the story behind founding NetSuite and how it all came about?
Yeah, sure. Well, I did another startup before NetSuite. It was sort of my mandatory Silicon Valley failure. But you know, we built some great technology that we were quite proud of. It wasn't showing traction in the marketplace. Larry Ellison helped me out with that one as an investor. And he'd call me every once in a while and ask how it was going. It was interactive software for the web. But he'd call it my graphic stuff. And he'd say, how is your graphic stuff going? And one day he called me and I said, not great. I think I want to pivot to doing business software because I've learned from running this company how there really isn't anything for small businesses to help them grow and manage their business. And he said, oh, this is great, because if I were to start a company right now, I would do online accounting, like something like QuickBooks, but delivered on the web so that companies don't have to manage computers and it can be used anytime, anywhere. And I said, well, I'd kind of like to do sales because I'm really interested in where my next deal is coming from. And he said, oh, well, yeah, we'll also do sales. We'll do the front office after we do the back office. But you need to do the back office because that's where all your products and your customers and everything about your business is sort of stored. That's your system of record. So in the matter of a few minutes, we dreamed up NetSuite, a full suite allowing you to manage your business and delivered over the web. And nobody had really delivered applications over the web. This is 3 months before Mark Benioff came to me and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do one of these internet startups too, and I'm going to start with sales and do sales." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's a great idea."
Wow. Okay, there's a lot to hit on there, but I first want to start with, so you have this, like you said, couple-minute conversation with Larry on the phone. How do you then take that and turn it into a reality?
Yeah, well, we had to move from our cool office in Multimedia Gulch, as it was called, in San Francisco, down into the suburbs, because that's where you do accounting software. We had to buy an accounting book because I didn't know anything about accounting. Fortunately, we soon hired some people that actually did. And, it was just the beginning of the era of building applications on the web. So we had to scrape and scrounge for what technology we wanted to use to make it all work. And we had to buy the servers and rack them. And, it was definitely a DIY situation for the four of us.
What were some of your favorite memories from that time? I mean, I can only imagine starting a company, there's got to be a lot of stories.
Yeah. Well, we were in an interesting office next to a liquor store and above a hair salon. Hair salon would be playing pounding music. We'd be trying to, write business software. And so one of us would bang on the floor with a broom to try to get them to turn the music down. But it was a really great time. I mean, all of us had we had young kids, and like my wife would bring my daughter, who was born, right in the same few months as we started NetSuite, in the wagon and bring us sandwiches. And it was basically two focuses in your life: your business and your family.
Yeah. Now you hit on this earlier, and I want to come back to it. NetSuite was the first company to put accounting in the cloud. Like you said, 3 weeks before some other stuff happened on the sales side, but NetSuite was the
3 months.
3 months. Okay, there you go. A little bit more time.
We had a huge lead. But we ended up riding Salesforce's coattails to some degree. I mean, Mark did a great job evangelizing, web-based software, or as he called it, no software. And so when we talked to companies that use Salesforce.com about using NetLedger, as it was called,
right,
for their accounting, if their CFO was like, "Well, I'm really concerned about putting my, financial information on the web." And I'm like, "Well, your VP of sales just put all your customer lists on the web. Do you think that's what they want, or your income statement?" So, it was definitely, we used any mechanism we could to convince people that it was okay. At some point, the switch flipped, and our competition had to convince them why they didn't want to put their information on the web. But in those early years, it was challenging. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
No, that's fine. You literally answered what I was just going to ask, which was, at that point in time, it was an uphill battle to convince businesses to put
even to convince myself. I mean, I totally bought into the idea of a full suite of business applications, but it was definitely Larry's insight that all applications were going to be ultimately delivered on the web. He used to say, we had mainframes, and then we had client server. Now we have these web-based applications. That's how applications are going to be delivered for the next 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. He would joke. He'd say, "I don't know what's going to happen after that, but I'm convinced this is the way." And it made sense to me. I went to a party at his house where Steve Jobs mentioned to me, he said, "Larry's so excited about this accounting in a browser, but does anyone want to do accounting in a browser?" And I was like, maybe.
Yeah.
Larry's convinced. I guess we'll see. It was only a few weeks later, though, that we actually got our company financials that were in QuickBooks loaded into our fledgling NetLedger system. And I remember distinctly, I was at home looking at my browser and seeing all the information about my company. And I was like, "Oh yeah, this is going to work."
Wow.
So I was a bit of a laggard, so I had to, I could relate to the people that had their skepticism, but I'd work hard to try to get them over the hump.
Well, and that, being able to relate, I'm sure that also kind of helped in some ways. Like, hey, I was skeptical too, and now, now look where we are. But speaking of uphill battles, at that time, Silicon Valley was buzzing in the late 90s, early 2000s. But then there was, of course, the .com bubble burst. How did you adapt and get through that time, especially with such a new business?
Yeah, well, we had fortunately raised some money in 1999. That was meant to last for a few years, so that definitely helped. And Larry was incredibly supportive, through that transition. Again, he's thinking 1,000 years,
Right.
not a year or
Yeah.
two. So, but it was it changed who we were selling to, and it actually made us. Initially, it was super easy to sell to these sort of software startups. There were a million of them, the next great web business. After that, we were like, oh, we maybe need to sell to distributors and manufacturers. And I mean, we were thinking about that, but it certainly allowed us to diversify. And that led to where we are today, where we serve all different kinds of businesses, companies that sell products, companies that sell services, nonprofits that are measuring their impact in terms of achieving their mission. So, that was definitely a driving force.
So really what you're saying is that obstacle or challenge actually ended up becoming kind of an opportunity, which I think a lot of businesses right now can relate to, the challenges that they're overcoming as...
Yeah, never let a crisis go to waste.
Right, exactly. Okay, so now walk me through, you've now diversified into different, industries, and
the application is now very diversified because that was my contribution. I really was all about, Larry was like online accounting. I was like, we got to build sales and everything else and really have it be a suite. And though he was a big believer in that too, he was doing that at Oracle also. But so we moved really quickly to diversifying the application to include CRM and e-commerce and all the components that you need to, build a successful business.
So when did NetLedger become NetSuite?
Yeah, so we named the company based on our initial product, and in retrospect, that wasn't as visionary maybe of a name. So soon, once we had all the other components, we renamed the product to NetSuite. Then Zach Nelson joined as CEO, and he's like, well, we really should just rename the company, which is a challenging thing to do at the time. You feel like you have all this, built up equity, but it was definitely the right thing.
So NetSuite went public in 2007.
Right.
That is something that a lot of the businesses that we work with, that is a major goal for them to achieve.
Sure.
So as a founder, what do you remember from that time? What are some takeaways that you can give to other businesses?
Well, I mean, the preparation to go public, and really, you need to make yourself appealing to the public, and you got to get a lot of your ducks in a row in your business. We learned a lot about how to make our software better, how to make NetSuite better for companies like us that were going public, because all along we were always using our own technology, as I said. I mean, that was, one of the seminal moments. There's another great moment of using our own technology when we came up with this thing called the executive dashboard, which was one page you could go to that had everything you needed to know and everything you needed to do about your business, because we had so much information now. We had, your sales information, your financial information, your web information, et cetera. And of course, our marketing strategy at the time was to do a press release and then call all these publications and say, don't you want to know what Larry Ellison's company is doing next? And so sure enough, I think most of the stories would mention Larry Ellison, and maybe Larry had like a, Google alert for stories of it. So he calls me and he's like, oh, I see you have this executive dashboard. Well, now I want to log in to NetSuite's instance of NetSuite. So A, I can see how you're spending my money, and B, I can see how it works and see how this dashboard thing works. And he proceeded to become the product manager of the NetSuite dashboard, and he'd call me every few days with a new idea. Evan, you got to have a drop down so you can change the comparison period for all the metrics. And I would dutifully code it and then send him an email and say, log in now. Wow. And so that was, the whole history of NetSuite. We were using our own technology to make it better. And in the process of going public, that we got a lot of great insights about what you need in your business management system to allow you to be set for a public offering. And as a result, I think that's one of the reasons why the vast majority of technology companies going public do it on NetSuite.
Yeah. Okay, so I love that, because that's an example of how NetSuite used NetSuite, and we were able to go public with that. Can you remember like a seminal moment with a customer where they started to really get the full benefits of using a suite?
Well, I do remember a moment where one customer saw the benefits of it being an online application. They were using the suite, they were using financials, and they were using our web store, and it was Christmas Eve, and their web store wasn't working, and they sent a note into support. Fortunately, I was reading, and I went and fixed it, and that really solidified in my mind that we're not just providing software, we're really providing a service. And so it's really, encompassing all these different capabilities, and some of these capabilities you really do need to be up and running 24/7. And so, there's a lot of learning that happened about doing more than just the old way of just writing some software, throwing it over the wall, and saying, sort of, we dare you to implement it.
Why, again, we're celebrating the 25 years of NetSuite. Why would you say the suite is more powerful today than ever before?
Well, one of the reasons is because we have so much more available as part of the suite. I mean, for example, HCM or HR was something that wasn't in our initial plan, but now we have suite people tied intimately to the rest of your information so that you can do the best at managing your people and manage them with the real data about, how they're doing and what they're doing. And again, having the information flow seamlessly. Other capabilities we've added, like planning and budgeting and warehouse management, and all of these benefit hugely from the fact that they can pull data instantly and accurately from every other part of the suite without you having to do anything, without you having to build and manage an integration, the expense and time of doing that kinds of things. I mean, that's what customers come to us with, and they say, we have a hairball. Yeah. I mean, that's what we tell you. Yeah. They describe it, and we say, yes, you're describing the hairball of everything connected to everything else, and I got to manage all these connections, and they break all the time, and I'm paying all these different vendors. And so as the capabilities of the suite have expanded, it's just more of that mess that we can help clean up.
What advice do you have for any of the businesses that we work with that are tuning in right now about being able to take on and leverage more and more of the suite? I mean, how can they go about learning even about that?
No, that's great. And we hear all the time when I talk to customers, I know I can get more out of NetSuite. I know there's a lot more there. I mean, we have incredible learning resources. We have our LCS learning cloud service that can help you understand what other aspects of the application might be relevant for you. We also have something called ACS, Advanced Customer Support, which is somebody that knows NetSuite really well and learns your company and can help you consume some of the newest capabilities. They understand what you should be looking at, so when you don't have to read we have enormous amounts of capabilities in each release. It's hard for people to read all those release notes, but if you have someone dedicated to your company that can say, oh, I think you should look at these 3 things, and I can help you activate them, that's really important for being able to take advantage of all the different new capabilities.
And for you guys who are tuning in, we actually do have a couple of things that you can look at to learn more about LCS and ACS. We have an LCS and ACS live that you can check out. We also have a couple podcasts, so if you want to learn more information on that. But more than that, Suite World 2023 is just around the corner, and we will have a ton of learning opportunities there. So make sure, if you haven't registered now, either for Suite World in person or on air, you check that out. Okay, so kind of pivoting now, we've talked about kind of the years of NetSuite. I would say we're maybe around the 2016 mark, which was the, of course, Oracle acquisition. Why was that the right move for NetSuite at the time? But more than that, the right move for our customers.
Yeah. Well, when NetSuite was incubated, I mean, the cloud was really new. I mean, we were really the first cloud company. And the idea, I think, for both Larry and me was that, we could go fast and build it most effectively sort of as an independent company. Meanwhile, Oracle was on its own journey of moving its applications to the cloud. And so 2016 really was when Oracle had really made a transition to be thinking of themselves as a cloud company. And I like to say it was appropriate to bring us together because the host would not reject the organ, and that we could do more together. I mean, and with the advances we've had over the past few years, I think that's really shown itself to be true, that together we've been able to do much more. And many of the enhancements to NetSuite that have come out recently, like our NetSuite Planning and Budgeting, NetSuite Analytics Warehouse, those have been developed in cooperation with the great teams at Oracle, and there's more to come. Our next generations of NetSuite are going to be built with technology that we built together with the other teams at Oracle that do some of the Oracle's other applications, and I think NetSuite customers are really going to see even more benefit.
And speaking of our customers, when you look back at the 25 years of NetSuite, what would you say were some of our biggest customer wins?
With 35,000 or plus, there's a lot to choose from, and certainly some of the early days, those early customers that I still sort of see. At Suite World, occasionally they say they've been using it since 2000, et cetera. I mean, all of those wins were big because we relied so much on their feedback to rapidly make the product better.
Yeah,
we've had great wins in so many industries. Companies, all these software companies and internet companies that have gone public over the years are some of our best wins. And then also, we as I mentioned, have a great footprint in helping nonprofits. And so fantastic nonprofits that have done incredible things with NetSuite. So really, rather than pulling out names, I'd just say those classes of companies are some of the ones that I've been most excited by and proud of.
Yeah, one of my favorite things at Suite World is when I hear customers who's like, "This is my 9th Suite World." I'm like, "You've been here from the start. That's amazing." Yeah. It's always a fun time. But as we're looking back again at the 25 years of NetSuite from 1998 through now, there have been a lot of technological breakthroughs, if you will. Mobile, e-commerce, and AI are some big ones to name three. What would you say have been the biggest impact of these breakthroughs on NetSuite, and how do we adapt to it?
Yeah, well, mobile was great simply because it meant that really that's the promise of anytime, anywhere. Right. So once you could actually get information on your mobile device from NetSuite, that made it even more differentiated from sort of the on-premise solutions that people had used in the past. Now I'd say that, AI has incredible promise. We've been looking at AI for something like 15 years. The idea of intelligent assistance, helping you get better insights, helping you automate things, helping you be able to interact with the product more effectively. That's sort of how we've been thinking all along. And now with some of the most recent advances, those possibilities are even greater. And we're going to, in the upcoming versions of NetSuite, you're going to see a lot of that come to fruition. I think it's a similarly exciting time to 25 years ago when the internet was just really getting going, and the possibilities did seem endless. I think we're in that same kind of phase right now, which means obviously excessive hype, but there really is a lot of meat behind it, and we're going to be utilizing that to help NetSuite customers be more successful with NetSuite.
What people don't realize right now is actually this is the AI-generated version of ourselves. Just kidding, you guys. It really is us. Don't worry. We're not there yet.
Well, I've told these stories so many times that you wouldn't even need AI for that. You just need copy and paste.
It's too funny. All right, last two questions here, and then I do want to open it up to the audience. But why do you think NetSuite is still the top cloud ERP out there? What are we doing right?
Well, learning from our customers is the number one thing. We are absolutely steadfast in making sure we're going out to customers. We obviously have getting great feedback from, for example, our advanced customer support reps that are going out there and living with the customer day to day. We go out there constantly to see how NetSuite is used in the wild. So having this broad range of customers and a broad, range in size from, very small startups to, companies doing hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, and seeing that whole sort of growth curve and building in the technology that you need across that entire life cycle as your company gets more complex and as you hit these roadblocks in your growth. So I think that's the number one determinant of success, that we listen to our customers and then we rapidly evolve NetSuite to be better.
So what do the next 25 years of NetSuite look like?
Well, I mean, we are in the process of continually reinventing ourselves, taking what we've learned over 25 years to make sure we're as vibrant in another 25 years. So I think you're going to see revolutions over the coming years in how you interact with NetSuite, what NetSuite can tell you in terms of insights, how you can combine data with everything in your system through our analytics warehouse with other data you have in your system to get great insight. And, we'll continue to remain focused on those critical benefits that NetSuite provides, which is insight, control of your company as it gets larger, automation, so that you can spend your time on the things that are most important, agility, because during these early years of your company, things change so much, that kind of the only constant, and of course, collaboration. So productivity from automation, but also collaboration is another way to make people more productive, that they can, everybody using the same system of record, kind of, having the same login, getting the same data, being able to share that data so easily, is just going to make your company be able to move faster.
Well, I certainly look forward to it. I know everybody who's tuning in right now probably feels the same way. And speaking of, I did promise that we would get to some questions at the end of our conversation. So we're going to do this live. I have my phone here and I have some questions coming in. I've got my producer sending them. Okay. So question number one right now is from Danielle in Oakland, who asks, what advice do you have for founders during tough economic times? We kind of hit on this when we were talking about the dot-com bubble burst earlier.
Well, the number one, and it's during good times and bad times, there's different reasons why you want to do this, but you want to stay focused on your vision. During tough times, you may be looking for business from all corners, and that's appropriate. I mean, you have to keep the lights on, but don't let it steer you too far away from that North Star. So I think that's critically important. And in times of plenty, it's the same kind of thing. The business is coming from so many places, you can get really distracted. So that's number one. And the other thing would be to, first of all, focus on your existing customers. If you're at the stage where you have customers, making sure if you're going through troubled times, they may too. And so you need to make sure you're doing everything to help them. And, that they will appreciate that, and that will pay off when, the good times return. And so again, some of the things that you've been able to kind of sweep under the rug when business is coming in from right and left are things that you need to refocus on. And if you do it right, you'll see that benefit later. And that's what we saw. During the financial crisis of 08, 09, we were a newly public company, very scrutinized. But we realized that our strength came from our existing customers, and maybe we were not giving them the attention that they needed. And some of the processes that we put into place and approaches that we put into place at that time to really help our customers are things that we have done for the subsequent 15 years and have provided huge benefit.
Absolutely. Okay, let's see here. Another one. This is from Dan in Chicago. Dan said, would you ever think about starting another company?
Well, I have a lot to do still at NetSuite. So I kind of look at the reinvention that we're going through now as like another startup. And I know the people that are working on some of the next generation technologies at NetSuite feel like it's a startup in all ways, good and bad. So, I'm super excited about the future here at NetSuite, and who knows what the future will bring. I have a lot of interesting things that I work on in my after work in terms of things involving cancer research, and so lot on my plate right
Yeah.
now, so I'm pretty happy with
Yeah.
what things are.
All right, final question here is from Keith in Louisville. Keith says, how do you ensure NetSuite adapts to address the ever-changing business environment and your customers' needs? We kind of hit on this earlier, but...
Yeah, well, first it's just to listen. And, you know, there's a degree to which we have developed great industry expertise across our industries. So the trends in an industry are really important for us to understand. How is inventory being handled differently? How are companies juggling between selling online through Amazon and selling through their own website? And what does NetSuite need to provide to make that really effective? So I think, you know, an industry focus, looking at what the trends are there is one of the most important ways, and listening to our customers and what their trends are is one of the most important ways we adapt NetSuite.
Well, Evan, I can't believe it. Those were some really great questions, but that's all the time we have today. Really appreciate you taking the time and celebrating 25 years of NetSuite with us.
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, congratulations on all of it too, by the way. This,
Thank you so much.
Lots to celebrate. And as always, a big thanks to all of you for tuning in. Make sure you give us a like, a follow, or a subscribe for more content just like this. We'll see you soon. Bye.